Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we will be doing part 2 of the cards that need to be changed, and that is the cards that need to be buffed. Yes, yesterday we talked about the cards that could potentially use a nerf in the upcoming patch to the cards, but today we're going to be doing something which I think is more exciting, and that's talking about cards that can be buffed. Of course, when cards get nerfed, they're still probably going from too strong to pretty strong, whereas when cards get buffed, they're going from completely unplayable to potentially, oh, now all of a sudden I can put this in the deck and it could be cool, and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about cards, one, that I'd like to see buffs, and I'm going to suggest some changes that they could make that I think would make some of these cards much more exciting. So the first card we are going to talk about here is Bubble Bear, and I will say, just before I go into this, of course, there will be cards that you think will need to be buffed and the like, and there probably is ones that I've missed or forgotten or could be buffed in some way. But there is also cards like Mushroom Cloud, right? Mushroom Cloud is a 1-mana card that puts 5 puff caps into the opponent's deck, and it's a card that would never see play because it's just essentially a bit of a dead card. But Mushroom Cloud is just in the deck for like, it's a main deckable card, right? In case, for whatever reason, you want to do it. It's sort of them just saying, like, take it if you want to, right? The one that I think that they haven't done that with is Spiderling. I'm not sure why they didn't put that one in there, but they tend to just throw it in there, right? Like Golden Narwhal here, you know, is a card that is created by, the card it's for the, I can't even remember its name, Hunting Fleet. But Golden Narwhal is a card that you can main deck if you really wanted to. Bubble Bear. Let's talk about Bubble Bear, though. Basically, there's going to be ones that I miss. Bubble Bear is a 3-mana 0/6 attune elusive and is essentially useless. 0 attack on any unit really isn't that good, and obviously 0 attack with elusive isn't that good. You might think, yeah, but look, you can buff it and you can use standalone on this and make it a 3/9. My question to you is, why would you not just use it on a Solitary Monk and get a 7/6 instead? Why have a 3/9 when I could have a 7/6? The point of elusive is, of course, that generally they aren't going to get blocked anyway. So you don't need an elusive blocker as such. You want attack on your elusives more so than you want defense. And so Bubble Bear just completely out of sync with what his card is trying to do, and therefore just isn't a good card. But let's talk about the bear and how we can potentially fix him, and I think this is a very exciting idea. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is actually change Bubble Bear's health from 6 to 4. You might think, but Chris, that's enough, and I say yes, but wait, there's more. So so far we're changing his health to 4, but his text, I think, should read, every time you attune, or every time I see you attune, grant me 1 attack. That means that when Bubble Bear comes down, he attunes himself. So he is now in 1/4 elusive. That has given you 1 spell mana. That is perfectly fine. And now each time that you attune, you're going to get an extra attack on Bubble Bear. So he can rise up to a 4/4 elusive, a 5/6/4 elusive. And attune is, I think, a keyword that hasn't been played that much outside of one card, which is Zap Sprayfin, but all of a sudden we're allowing, where is Zap there? Zap Sprayfin is a perfectly fine card, but the other cards aren't terrible, they aren't completely useless, and so attune, all of a sudden you can make a little attune deck, maybe put Fizz in there. These were the cards that he was sort of brought up with when they were revealed Fizz, and so I think that this kind of thing could be very exciting for a card like Bubble Bear. Next up, Mystifying Magician, pretty easy one, just make him a 3/3. I think that would pretty much fix any problems with Mystifying Magician for the most part. Hunting Fleet is our third card though, and Hunting Fleet obviously has a problem that at the moment it spawns a unit for your opponent, but I think what would be interesting with this card is give it Fearsome. Give Hunting Fleet the old Fearsome keyword. Now we're talking, because this Golden Narwhal can't block the Hunting Fleet. And now we've got a 7/7 Fearsome for 5, and that could be a big threat. But we have given the opponent an elusive unit, so it's still a pretty big trade-off. So on to Demacia, and we start with Vanguard Lookout, a card which has needed a buff ever since it first came into existence. This used to be just a pure 1/4 without the elite tag. They gave it the elite tag to potentially try and buff it up, but now I have an idea for this card that actually could make it see some play, and that is give him Scout. He is a lookout. Give the card Scout. And all of a sudden it having 1 attack and 4 health makes a lot more sense, because Scouts kind of have to be a bit understated anyway, but a 1/4 isn't necessarily understated, I suppose. Next up is Laurent Chevalier. And my comparison for this card, and why this card is so bad, is think about Jewel Hunters. Jewel Hunters is a 3 mana 4/1 challenger that creates a sea monster in hand. Laurent Chevalier is a 4 mana 3/1 challenger. Strike, create another random challenger follower in hand. I mean, in theory, you can potentially get multiple challengers from him if you play him in like a combat trick deck, but only 3 attack when Jewel Hunters has 4, and he's 4 mana when Jewel Hunters is 3. This card clearly needs some sort of buff, and the way to do it, make him a 4/1 for 4, potentially. Make him 3 mana, potentially. Honestly, Braum's main problem is that Will of Ionia exists. Will of Ionia, if Will of Ionia wasn't in the game, Braum would probably see play. I still think he is a little weak. I think 5 health isn't that much. And anyone who's played Braum knows this, because if you drag a 3, like a 2 mana 3/2 to Braum, you've only got 2 health, and you know, Mystic Shot is played in every deck that runs P&Z, and there's quite a few things that, you know, can deal 2 damage to you all of a sudden. And so I think 5 might not be enough. You might want to make him a 6 health, and also I think you might want to bring down this total damage to 8 maybe. I think oftentimes you don't level up Braum, and I think normally Braum isn't really played for his leveled up condition, so you might want to change that as well. But I think start off with probably making his level up easier, because Braum does combine 2 very strong keywords in Challenger and Regeneration. These are 2 keywords that of course are super strong together, right, in the fact that you can just kill something and keep living, and that's where Braum, I guess, is finding most of his value. But I think with just the 5 health, there definitely needs to be something here to be changed. And I think Braum's biggest buff would be nerfing Will of Ionia to be a start, but I think also he could use with some love changing this to be a little easier to 8 damage, potentially, you know, making him 6 health as well to help him survive a bit in those first few encounters that he goes up against. Feral Mystic is a card that has not seen much play really at all. It is a 2 mana 2/2 Enlightened Die plus 4/4. Overwhelm. It at least needs to be a 3/2 is what I would say. It has to be a 3/2 coming out, just because of Fearsome and the way the game works. And there's a lot of 3/2s, and 2 mana 2/2s, unless you're doing something when you come down, just don't see play. And I think the problem with Feral Mystic again is not potentially the card itself, but potentially the region it finds itself in, and that archetype in particular, that enlightened like Ionia Freljord archetype that they wanted to create, just isn't there, mainly due to stuff like Catalyst of Eons not really being there as a card at all, one that we will talk about soon. Yeah, but Feral Mystic, at least a 3/2. You might want to completely redesign this card as well in some other way. And now we'll come to Shatter. Shatter is another card we haven't really seen much play with. Deal 4 to an enemy unit if it has 0 power, otherwise Frostbite it. This just needs to be fast speed, I think. I think making it fast speed would make it a pretty decent option overall. Speaking of Catalyst of Eons, my idea for this card, and this card is just, it's very slow, right? It's just a very, very, very slow card. And I like the idea of it healing you, and maybe, you know, you could make it heal you more, potentially. But I think what this card might need as well is that if you are enlightened already, you draw a card. It's a cycle itself card if you are already enlightened, and by the time you're up to turn 10, let's say you got 13 mana overall to spend, right? And mana at that point isn't that big a deal, so even though 5 mana draw 1 card is obviously way overcosted, you're talking about at the end game already, so mana isn't as big a deal potentially as it would be otherwise. And I think it would help this card a lot, because obviously completely dead draw. I mean, a 5-mana heal 3 is obviously the most useless thing you can have when it's turn 10. And so I think that would help this card at least somewhat, potentially see more viability. And as I say, you could potentially buff up the amount it heals as well, and that would help the card also. Talking about trying to help Freljord's overall viability and trying to help them get this archetype, which just has not seen much play in sort of a Freljord control shell. I think Freljord should be able to play control outside of Shadow Isles itself, and I think if it could, then that would be really, really good for the game and really good for Freljord, and I think that's kind of what's keeping it back. And a great way to do that is to make Winter's Breath a fast speed card. If Winter's Breath is a fast speed card, obviously it would become a powerhouse of a card, but regions need powerhouses of a card, right? And a 7-mana, either frostbite everything or kill everything. And finally in Freljord we're going to talk about She Who Wanders. She Who Wanders play obliterate all followers with 4 or less power in play and in hand, and I've talked about the problem with this Freljord archetype. It doesn't have enough things. Now this is a 10-mana card. It's 10-mana 10/10. So quite beefy unit, and it's going to completely destroy everything with 4 or less power in play and has. Oh, that's quite a cool effect. Problem with this card is obviously it is very slow. It has to be turn 10. It has to be played, and that's where the crux of this issue comes in. And I would love to see a potential Warmother's Call deck, because Warmother's Call says summon. What if She Who Wanders was a summon effect? Instead of a play effect, it becomes a summon effect, and all of a sudden a Warmother's Call with a bunch of beefy units becomes your deck, and now you have a real deck on your hand, and you just ramp up to Warmother's Call and you just completely board wipe them. You could also give She Who Wanders Fearsome. I don't know why She Who Wanders wouldn't have Fearsome. I mean, it's a massive beast. Here's Babbling Bjerg, by the way, and here's She Who Wanders. Are you telling me that this thing isn't fearsome? And it's a 10/10, right? It shouldn't be able to be jump blocked by little 1/1s. Little spider could not block She Who Wanders. That's how it should be. So I think add fearsome at the very least. More so though, I think add a summon effect to this card, as that would make the card viable. Shen needs a buff. Shen is a 4-mana 2/5. Now this is vastly understated. Golden Crushbot, for those of you who don't know, is one of the probably worst cards in the game, a card we will talk about. There's 3-mana 2/5 from P&Z. So we've got a 4-mana 2/5 here already. So Shen is a mana cost higher and the same stat line as a card that sees no play. I don't necessarily need to see Shen get buffed up back to a 2/6. Instead, my idea for Shen is to give him barrier when he comes down. Now what would this do for Shen? Well, 1, it gives him obviously a very relevant keyword to Shen. It already helps his level up condition, so you roll 1 of 4 just from playing Shen, so essentially you only need 3. It gives him barrier, so for that first time that you attack, assuming you play it on an attacking turn, which you probably will want to, it means that when he gives barrier, you're now on 2 of 4 already, and your Shen won't take damage. So you've still got a 2/5 now that's halfway leveled up and hasn't taken any damage. Right, okay, we're getting there. It goes to their turn. You've probably got a barrier in hand if you're playing Shen, or let's assume that you probably might. It's on their turn, they attack, and you use a barrier to trick something else or whatever. Shen's now on 3. Okay, so now we're on 3, and now when we attack next turn with Shen, he's going to level up, and his level up condition, as I said, is pretty strong. But what's even better is, let's say your Shen dies, but you've leveled him up, so now when you've got a leveled up Shen in hand, you play that leveled up Shen, he's now a 6/6 for the turn with barrier. So he's already a threat, and he can give something else +3 and barrier, making the card much stronger. And so you see how just a small little change can change a card quite a lot. Aspiring Mentor. Remember when this was the curse of the whole thing and had to get nerfed itself? Yes, I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. And yeah, this card got nerfed, and it got nerfed to play. Granted, now they one hand +1/+0, but obviously most of its ability came in giving something extra health stats, most notably elusives. Those of you who weren't around for that time, count yourself lucky that, yes, elusives used to be even better than they are right now. And this card was a large reason why it was. But Inspiring Mentor now I think is a little weak, and I think he should be a summon effect as well. I don't see why this has to be a play effect, and with so many cards that got introduced with Bilgewater that summon these one mana things, I think if it was summoned and all of a sudden you get to give something in your hand +1/+0, I think most of his power was in the fact that he gave something extra health, and so even if this was a summon effect, I don't think it would be a big deal at all. Here's a card you may have never seen. It's Shadow Seer, a 2-mana 3/1 Nexus Strike. Create a copy of me in hand, so it's elusive and ephemeral. This card doesn't see play because, of course, it's a bit of a mana sink. Think about it, you play it, and it's not like Shark Chariot where, you know, you just need something ephemeral attacking and Shark Chariot will summon itself. You have to play it and then play it again and play it again and play it again, and you can only really do this on turns where you're attacking because it needs the Nexus Strike. Well, my idea for this card is get rid of Nexus Strike, make it strike, create a copy of me in hand, and also make it a 4/1. You might think that's a little overkill, but think about it. You are constantly putting 2 mana into this card, and that's a commitment. That's a constant commitment you are making, and so it better make an impact. I'm trying to take these cards from a 0.5 to at least a 2.5, and if some of them end up at 3 out of 5 as well, then that's fine with me, and I think that this card, make it strike, make it a 4/1, and we might have a card that might see some play. We've found another champion, and this one is in Noxus, and it is Vladimir, and I've thought about this card for a long time, and obviously Vladimir needs a buff, right? Vladimir suffers greatly from the fact he's just not that strong. His ability is fine. Again, as we were talking about before, 5-mana 5/5, you know, no keyword on this one, so maybe slightly undervalued there. And, you know, attack, for each attacking enemy, deal 1, and you've seen 6 others 5, so these are a nice little combo piece there. Vladimir's problem is compare him to Garen. Garen gets regeneration straight away. Vladimir doesn't get regeneration until he levels up. Garen provides you with a much stronger effect in the fact that he will rally on turns when it's not your turn to attack. Vladimir will do the same as he did before, and this is where the crux of the problem comes with Vladimir. But again, you can make such a slight change and make such a big difference to a card, and what I would say is for Vladimir, make his ability when he levels up, deal 1 to the enemy, deal 2 to the Nexus. All of a sudden, think about Ezreal as well, right? Like Ezreal, you just play a spell and you deal 2 to the Nexus. All of a sudden Vladimir becomes viable. If you have a full board, you're dealing 10 Nexus damage no matter what. Well, they could deny it, I suppose, but, or, you know, they have to kill a unit straight away. But you're dealing 10 Nexus damage, you've got a full board. Vladimir potentially becomes an aggro champion where you can put him at your top end and just in a swarm deck with, you know, a bunch of spiders, you don't care if they die, you just use them to deal 2 damage to the Nexus. You're essentially just throwing them at the Nexus to deal 2 damage to it. All of a sudden, it sounds cool, right? All of a sudden, it's like, okay, this card could see some play. You know, all of a sudden, like, if you've got a full board, you're dealing half their damage of their total health. That's a big deal. That's something that, you know, you can't underestimate. And his level of condition actually isn't super difficult. And I think as a whole, Vladimir is fine. His relevant cards that he comes with also might need a bit of a buff as well. But I think Vladimir could potentially very much see in a lot of different decks, whether that be Demacia as well. You know, there could be a Noxus Demacia aggro type with Vladimir at top end that again does this effect that deals 2 to the Nexus. I think it would be so much fun to use this card that just is not used at all. Next up on the list we have Arena Bookie. 3-mana 2/1 round start, discard your lowest cost card to draw 1. He's a 3-mana 2/1. I don't think there's much more I need to say other than he's a 3-mana 2/1. Now, what annoys me about this card so much is that his synergy with Draven is so good, that I wish I could play him, because it would be so much fun to make a Jinx Draven deck with Arena Bookie as a way to just essentially just filter through your deck and keep finding good cards. I think that would be so much fun. But instead, we're trapped with this horrible card that just dies straight away to pretty much anything and can't do anything. So obviously, you either need to make him 2 mana, 1 mana maybe even. I think 1 mana would be a bit extreme for the ability, but 2 mana definitely. More likely, just buff his stats up, make him a 2/3. Or, as I say, if you don't want to buff his stats because he's a little yodel or whatever, make him 2 mana. And then maybe we can start talking, because then he can start early on filtering those things, and often on turn 2 that he might survive and potentially get some value. And it's important as well, as I say, his synergy with Draven is very good, but again, another problem is he comes out on the same turn as Draven, and this is the kind of problem with cards sometimes you can find, is we don't need him to come out on the same turn as Draven, we need him to come out on a different turn. Basilisk Rider is our next card, a 4 mana 5/2 Allegiance, grant me 1/1 and Overwhelm. This card, again, simple change. I would give it an extra health. That way you at least get a 5/3, and if you get the Allegiance now, you've got a 6/4 Overwhelm for 4. That's pretty good. It's still not great, but at least it's something, right? And it would help the card, I think, quite a lot. You might even make this a 5/4. I'm not even kidding. Compare them to the other Allegiance cards. The other Allegiance cards are pretty strong, like Wraithcaller obviously gets you an extra body. It gives you at least 6/5 worth of stats, so making this a 5/4 would also kind of be in line with that, so I don't see why not, but at least a 5/3, but as I say, probably more actually. Make this a 5/4 off the start, and you know, if you get the Allegiance, then he becomes a 6/5. Shunpo, Shunpo, this one I'm pretty excited about, and again is proof that you just need to change just a tiny little bit, and all of a sudden you have quite the card. So Shunpo is a 5 mana slow spell, deal 2 to an enemy unit, then rally. Now, I'm not going to change the slow part of this card, which I think most people, that's what they would change. I'm going to change this enemy unit thing. I'm going to change enemy unit and say anything. Deal 2 to anything, then rally. What's the problem with this card? Well, one, they have to have an enemy unit on the board, and if it doesn't, you can't play the card. That is a massive, massive downside to the fact it's already a 5 mana slow speed spell that just never would see play. But if we change this to anything, all of a sudden we're combining Mystic Shot and Relentless Pursuit into one card. Sure, we're making it slow speed, so therefore, you know, it's not as potentially, you know, we're combining 2 cards into one, so, you know, we've got to make it worse somehow, and making it slow speed will do that. But doing this as a whole, I think, would make the card a lot of fun. It would, I think, definitely see play at that point in the right deck, and yeah, could be a lot of fun for some Noxus decks. And I think that, again, just a one slight change to a card can really help a deck become viable. And Shunpo could potentially make a sort of Noxus list, mid-range list become viable with this kind of change. And I think that would be very helpful indeed. Another one I'm quite excited about is Trifarian Shieldbreaker, a 5 mana 6/5 fearsome. This card is obviously pretty decently started and fearsome. Cool. I'm actually going to borrow an idea from another card, and that is Terror of the Tides. What if Trifarian Shieldbreaker read 5 mana 6/5 fearsome, attack, give one enemy unit -2 attack for the round. As I say, similar to Terror of the Tides. Terror of the Tides also gives all your other sea monsters fearsome, so obviously it's like a sort of, this is like a mini version of Terror of the Tides, and that has fearsome itself, but potentially can now get in 6 damage itself on its own. It's also a shield breaker. You know, he breaks a shield. I suppose that would be health, but I think that would be a bit too strong if he minus something's health. So minus the attack. Maybe he can be called Sword Breaker instead, and minus the attack. And I think it would be a great change for this card and allow it to see play. P and Z we go, and the first card we are looking for is Intrepid Mariner. Mariner? I don't know. 2 mana 1/3 support, give my supported ally elusive this round. Again, very simple. Has to be a 2/3. It can't be understated, this card. I don't see why they made it understated in the first place. I understand that elusive is kind of powerful in a way, but at the same point, you know, this card in itself isn't that great. So make it a 2/3, very simple. We spoke about this card before, and this is another one I'm pretty excited about. Golden Crushbot is a 3 mana 2/5. Now, I don't need to tell you that Loyal Badger Bear is a 3 mana 4/4. 5 + 2 is 7, 4 + 4 is 8. So Badger Bear essentially has 1 extra stat for essentially no reason. You know, they both do nothing in themselves. So let's talk about Golden Crushbot. And my idea is not to change the stats of Golden Crushbot, not to do anything like that, because they want the regions to have these identities, and Demacia's region identity is that has strong, well-statted units, right? And P&Z's units tend to be slightly understated. That's kind of their mantra. And so let's change Golden Crushbot a bit more. Let's create a spell. I don't know what the spell would be called. Let's create a spell a 3 mana slow speed spell that summons a Golden Crush bot. Now you might think, has that changed anything? Why would anyone play that instead? Well, 1, you can use spell mana, of course, to use it. But 2, and most importantly, now Golden Crush bot has a home. He has a home with, of course, Heimerdinger, who loves 3 mana spells so that he can get these elusive turrets out. And now we've given him an extra 3 mana spell. Now it's not the most impressive 3 mana spell. It's only summoning a Golden Crush bot. It's not doing that much in itself. It is slow speed, so it's not like Flash of Brilliance where you can just, even if you try and kill Heimerdinger, they can just get 3 turrets from you anyway from Flash of Brilliance. It's a slow speed spell, so they have to wait to play it. If you do try and kill your Heimerdinger, they can't just put it on the stack. And without Heimerdinger, it's a pretty useless spell overall, but now it has a home, and I think that that's what's important. Most importantly though, he is a bot, so clearly was meant to go with Heimerdinger, and now they can just accept Heimerdinger likes 3 mana spells, give him an extra 3 mana spell. And what this would allow Heimerdinger is, and this would see play in a deck where you are combining Heimerdinger with a region that doesn't have a lot of good 3 mana spells in the second region you're playing, and therefore you put in something like this Golden Crush bot spell to allow you to be able to get enough 3 mana spells as well. And that would be, I think, a great change. Back alley Barkeep, again, just make it a 3/3. It's not rocket science. Just keep it simple with these ones, and you should have, a slightly better card. Now, Sump Snipe Scavenger is the allegiance card for P and Z, and his allegiance is create a Sump Swork Mac and hand. It costs 0 this round. Now, I've already talked about how strong the other allegiance cards are, and I think that this and the Basilisk Rider are the ones that are severely lacking behind the other ones, in truth. And what I think I would do for this card is, instead of the map, you could potentially even keep the map, right? But I think it should be maybe the map and some other random 2-cost spell. And I don't think they have to be free either. You can say that the map now isn't free, but I'm creating you 2 random spells in hand. He also could be a 4/4, because, a 4/3 isn't the best stat line in the world either. And so I think that in general, this card just needs a little buff just to align itself with the other power levels of the allegiance cards, right? And I think that that would be a way of helping this card out in a big way, to give it potentially 2 random spells that he creates instead. Funsmith. This card has kind of become somewhat irrelevant with the use of powder kegs, and I think Funsmith's main issue is not even necessarily to 2/3. Obviously, you could make Funsmith a 2/4, 2/5 if you wanted to. For me, it's actually the mana cost. Like, if this card was a 2 cost, it would be completely broken, right? Even if it was probably a 1/1. If it was even a 1/1 at 2 mana, just the potential that you can go off very, very quickly with this card, or you can even play it on a later turn and then just go mad before they get the chance to kill it. That's where the power comes from. So I think a mana decreases in order for Funsmith, potentially to 4 mana. As I say, I think a 2 mana 1/1 would make Funsmith quite an interesting card in general, as now, you've got this 1/1 for 2 mana. It's not really doing much early on in the game, but as I say, late game, they try and remove your Funsmith, and all of a sudden you just spell spam them with Mystic Shots and get excited, and that could be an exciting way to play the game. Could go in a Jinx deck as well. Could be very, very fun indeed. And finally, we finish with these Shadow Isles, and the first card I'm actually going to talk about is Hecarim. I don't think anything massive needs to change. I think maybe he could use with his 6 health back. Hecarim doesn't see much play, unfortunately, and I think as a general, Ephemerals need some help, and getting a big Hecarim back to his levels, but not to his supreme levels that he used to be, could be important for that kind of archetype to thrive, with 3 Hecarim in there. As I think he could potentially see some play and be quite a bit of fun if he had 6 health rather than 5, because 5 on turn 6 is quite easy. A lot of 5 and 6 drops will have the 5 attack, and quite a few of them will have more than 4 health anyway. So I think they went a little too far with this one, and just give him the 6 health, just so that, a lot of those 5 drops can't actually kill him on the first time that they block him. Next up is Fresh Offerings, and my idea for this card, I think, again, just such a simple change, can change so much. I would like to see this card be similar to Remembrance. Remembrance, of course, is a 6 mana card that when each time an ally dies, the cost comes down and you get a random 5 cost. Now, you might say it could even be higher than that because you're getting a 6/6 fearsome. Is a 6/6 fearsome better than a Swiftwing Lancer? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's not that far off. I will say that it's easier, obviously, for things to die in Shadow Isles, so you might want to make this 7 cost just, and then the cost comes down with each ally that dies, just because it's easier to do so in Shadow Isles. And you are, I suppose, getting a slightly buffed up unit. But again, you could change the stats on Valmor himself if you wanted to. But I think that would change this card and change it for the better. Most notably, of course, if you make this 6 mana card, that would very much help out the Mage Seekers, because now you have Remembrance and Fresh Offerings that are summoning you this nice big units that can go with the Mage Seeker cards that can then get buffed up from these spells. And I think that would be a pretty cool design in a whole kind of way, and help out that archetype quite a bit. Iron Harbinger. Fearsome, attack, grant me 1/0 for each ephemeral ally in play. This is something that I would like to see change. I think instead of grant me the 1 attack for each ephemeral ally in play, it's not a terrible card. Again, I think it's the ephemeral struggle. But to give this card the buff that it needs, I think he could read something like, grant me 1/0 attack for each ally that died last round. Now we're talking about a card with some power, and he might need to be 4 mana to coincide with that extra power that potentially he's getting. But I think it would be a nice change to the card and give a potential option for Shadow Isles in a sort of, maybe Prankster deck, maybe even it could fit into a They Who Endure deck, right? And be pretty cool in that way. Sap Magic, pretty simple for this one. Heal the Nexus 3 as well. Why is this not healing them at Nexus 3? I'm not sure. But essentially it's a useless card right now. It would obviously be a slight buff to Maokai as well, as this is his signature spell. But I think just, make it heal the Nexus 3. It's not a big change. It wouldn't make it that great of a card still, but it would make it at least worth something, I think. And Ancient Crocolith. Just give him Fearsome. He's a massive crocodile. Give him Fearsome. And our final card is Scuttlegeist. This is a 10 mana 5/5 Fearsome. Reduce my cost by 1 for each ally that died this game. Compare this to Plaza Guardian, which is the other type of this card. Plaza Guardian is a 6/6 quick attack. I'm just going to put that out there. That is that's better than the 5/5 Fearsome, obviously. I think this card might need to be a 7/7 Fearsome. Or at least a 6/6, but probably even bigger than that, because in general I think quick attack is a better keyword than Fearsome is. And so I think Scuttlegeist just needs that extra stat bump to make it sort of in line with Plaza Guardian. And so that's it. That's all the cards I have talked about today. There's quite a few of them. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sure you all have certain cards that you would like to see buffed. We all have our favorite cards, of course. And as I say, there's many different ways of buffing a card, whether that being nerfing another card, like Will of Ionia would all of a sudden make quite a few cards a bit better. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this sort of podcast little rant. My name is Chris. I'll be back with a video, maybe a tech one today or one tomorrow at the very least. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.